It is people, power, and politics. This, my friends, is The Pulse. I'm Roop Raj. We have a lot to get to tonight. The news with Senator Elissa Slotkin, what she said and did that had President Donald Trump calling her behavior seditious and punishable in some cases by death. Also, ask the experts. Tonight's topic, tariffs, and how they're affecting the automakers and our overall economy. Auto industry insider Jan Griffiths will join us in Studio C. We'll talk about all of that coming up in a few minutes. But we begin tonight with the big story of the day. Michigan Senator Elissa Slotkin, one of 6 lawmakers who took part in a 90-second video. Here's some of it.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
Well, President Trump not happy with this. He's responding in a post on Truth Social saying, quote, "It's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example must be set. President DJT." He then followed up with this: seditious behavior punishable by death, end quote. Senator Slotkin, the former CIA officer, responding today on social media by saying, quote, "Earlier this morning, President Trump threatened me and a group of service and veteran members of Congress with arrest, trial, and death by hanging." She also posted this video.
This really isn't about those of us who made the video. This is about who we are as Americans and how we're going to engage with people who we disagree with. I would hope that people of all backgrounds, Democrat, Republican, Independent, would agree that threatening death for people you disagree with is beyond the pale of who we are as Americans. I believe in the power of this country and that we are better than our current politics represent, and I refuse to be intimidated out of defending the country I love.
As you can imagine, this is getting a lot of buzz. It's generating a lot of reaction from both sides.
This really isn't about those of us who made the video. This is about who we are as Americans and how we're going to engage with people who we disagree with. I would hope that people of all backgrounds, Democrat, Republican, Independent, would agree that threatening death for people you disagree with is beyond the pale of who we are as Americans.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer chiming in as well tonight. She's saying in part, quote, "We can disagree fiercely. We must always center our mutual respect for one another. Let's work together to turn down the temperature and stay focused on getting things done," end quote. Joining me to discuss this and some of the other stories making news this week out of Washington is Aaron Tobin. He's a conservative commentator and former executive board member for the Oakland County Republican Party. Aaron, it's always good to see you. Thanks for joining us here tonight on The Pulse. I got to begin by asking you your initial reaction when you saw this squabble between the senators and the lawmakers and President Trump. What did you first think?
Well, first I saw the commercial. Watching Fox 2, I saw the commercial and I was just appalled. I was sitting with my mouth open. I was like, how could these people say that?
The lawmakers.
The lawmakers, especially Slotkin, who said, oh, I'm going to cross the lines and I'm going to work with Republicans. It was so biased and hateful, full of hate.
But what they said in the video, Aaron, was you should not follow unlawful orders.
Right.
Just by way of those words, what's wrong with saying that?
So
in your mind?
These people are sworn, people in the military and our services have a chain of command. They should go up to their chain of command if they have a question or what they think is unlawful. They should not be told that you should adjudicate this. They are not lawyers, they're not attorneys. They have a JAG, a military court. These people, generally the military is trained on what is and is not acceptable and when it is possible to avoid carrying out an order. That since Lieutenant Calley went into Vietnam and him and his men destroyed a village, killed everyone in the village. That is a very sensitive point now with the military. To tell people that you should adjudicate an order when it comes down and you should double think an order from above, and even the commander-in-chief, they are trying to take away the commander-in-chief's authority and turn people against the commander-in-chief.
Let me ask you this. So we have a couple of things going on here. We have obviously the video that you found appalling, so many people didn't like, the president didn't like. Let's begin there, and then we'll go to the president's reaction. I was talking to an attorney earlier today who said, I don't know where we've lost our way, where we don't meet in the same rooms or say, hey, I have an issue, I want to talk to you about this, and not try to, as you say, adjudicate this publicly on social media. Let's begin with the lawmakers. What's a better way? Let's say they really do have concerns about how the military is being used. How would you then say they should fiercely, as the governor described, disagree, but still do it in a way that would be acceptable in your mind?
They could have done the same commercial much nicer and more effectively. And they all know veterans. They said that they are veterans. They know there's a chain of command. They know that they are trained. There were outright lies in what they said in their messaging.
But should they be doing it on social media at all is my point. I mean, I guess I'm going to assert a little bit of my opinion here. Maybe these lawmakers should have actually said, let's go get a meeting with Secretary Hegseth and chat about our concerns, our deep concerns, and then maybe hold a congressional hearing and discuss it with their constituents. Instead, though, it seemed like kind of this very kind of boisterous message on social media that came out of left field. So is there a better way for these lawmakers to have handled it?
You hit the nail right on the head. This is exactly what Slotkin promised to do, to work with the president. She was on this stage and said, I want to work with the Republicans and I will work with President Trump. She basically, this is an attack on President Trump from behind.
Now, let me ask you this, though. You're the president of the United States. You're used to people attacking because you are the head of your party.
You're the target.
And you're the target. The president, the way he handled this by talking about death and sedition, that is not accurate, though, because sedition would mean, promoting an unlawful act. It's the very thing that they were actually calling the military not to do, which is to follow an unlawful act. Why do you believe that what the president said was correct? Do you think that he could have handled it differently?
Of course he can, but he's President Trump, and he's going to say what comes off the top of his mind.
But do you wish that he handled it differently?
I always wish that he is more presidential. He's given some beautiful speeches and very articulate. I always wish that, but he is the man that we need for the job at this time, and I believe he's doing a great job. But yeah, I don't see he called for the death penalty. I actually saw his posts, and sedition, there's three types of sedition.
Yep.
This was the type where you are encouraging people, members of the armed services, not to listen to their supervisors. That is the definition of sedition.
But the definition of sedition is correct in what you just stated. But what is not correct is in that video, it didn't say don't follow orders. It said don't follow unlawful orders. So that's an important distinction, wouldn't you say?
They are telling soldiers, you are now the judge, jury, and the jury. You should adjudicate every single order you got. Let me see, I don't agree with this one. I'm not going to do this one. There's a chain of command. They have to follow the chain of command. They are more than welcome to go to the chain of command and say, you know what, I don't think this is legal. I'm questioning this order. But the way they said it is not right.
I think, what I like about you is that you have some balance here. You're saying that you do like the president's performance when it comes to a lot of different things, but you also can recognize, unlike so many people who are part of the MAGA movement, cannot recognize any downfall of this president, that perhaps you could choose his words more carefully. The temperature is too high right now. Everyone knows that. Isn't it the responsibility of both the lawmakers and the president to lower that temperature?
We've talked about that several times. That's one of the most beautiful things that you do, is you call for the temperature to come down and people to have the conversations.
Yeah.
There's far right and there's far left. I don't want to say that I'm far right, but I've been right so far. So I'm telling you that, yes, everyone needs to calm down. These people that were in this commercial should have gone to Washington. Well,
they're in Washington. They could have gone to the White House, gone to Hegseth, talked to them, right?
If the mayor of New York, newly elected mayor of New York, is having a meeting with Trump, for sure he would have met with these legislators. Slotkin said she would be working, she would be proud to go to the White House. She really, I think, shot herself in the foot and showed that she is not willing to work with the president.
This proves time and time again, and on this program we'll point out when Democrats and Republicans could do things perhaps a little bit better. And in this case, it's pretty clear that Democrats and Republicans could have done things a heck of a lot better. And that includes the president. That includes so many of these lawmakers as well. An important discussion, one that we'll continue to have. Aaron Tobin, conservative commentator. Thanks for your perspective on the Pulse tonight.
Thanks.
Coming up, tariffs. What effect are they having on the economy, and more specifically, the auto industry? We're taking your questions, and we'll ask an expert coming up. You're watching the Pulse on Fox 2. Welcome back to The Pulse, all things people, power, and politics. It's time for Ask the Experts with former auto supply chain executive and host of the Automotive Leaders podcast, Jan Griffiths. And Jan, it's always good to see you. Thanks for joining us here.
My pleasure.
So much has happened since the last time we talked when it comes to tariffs, and so many of our viewers have questions. And we always say this show is about you, and we build the show around you. We listen to you. So here are some of the questions that you asked. We'll begin with this one from Tanya. Tanya, thank you for writing into The Pulse tonight. You're asking a pretty good question about the big three here. And that question is, did the big three get any tariff relief or tax breaks? This is a great question because we're hearing a lot of mixed messages. Jan, what do you think?
Yes. Well, the answer simply is yes. There is some relief, some tariff relief for the automakers. They have now extended the 3.75% tariff credit to the automakers through to 2030. So basically, it's to offset some of the pain that they have to pay for their incoming parts, for the tariffs on their incoming parts.
How much have tariffs hurt the big three in your mind, or helped the big three in any way?
Yeah, well, the tariffs, the latest estimates, a combined $7 billion of impact.
Impact,
which is a big number. Yeah, to their earnings, yes.
Let's talk about Ben. Ben, you have a great question here on The Pulse. Thanks for writing in. Your question is, because of Wall Street expectations between the forecast of double-digit profits versus current single-digit profits, how are the OEMs and suppliers planning for this in 2026 and beyond to prevent a recession and more layoffs? Ooh. Ben, thank you so much for writing in here to The Pulse.
Good question.
Yeah.
There is always, and always will be, pressure from Wall Street. Always. Now, the big three have some tremendous challenges ahead of them in 2026 that they have to plan for to make sure that they meet their profit projections. They're dealing with realigning their business to move from ICE, internal combustion engine, and EV. They have to move towards ICE and away from EV. That's a huge issue for them. They have to deal with supply chain challenges. They have to be ready for just about anything. One thing we've learned in the auto industry in the last several years is you've got to be ready for chip shortages. You've got to be ready for geopolitical issues. They have to be ready for all of that. And they also have to incorporate something that's in the news a lot lately, and that is AI. What is AI going to do for them? Is it going to be a benefit? Will it help them overcome some of the impact of tariffs?
What do you think about that right now, tentatively speaking? Where do you see that going with AI?
I see that there will be a benefit for AI. I spent an entire day on Tuesday in New York in a conference talking to supply chain executives about how they will lead their organizations and change their organizations, not to get rid of people. It's not about getting rid of people. It's about augmenting the human with AI and getting that balance right.
So it's making my job easier in some way, or facilitating my job in a way that it's more productive as a company.
Exactly.
Not getting rid of people.
No. Will there be some people? Will they have to get rid of some people? Yes. Basic jobs that can be very easily undertaken by AI, yes. But the human will still have to be in the loop for certain decisions, and it will elevate the creativity and all the things that are very much uniquely human.
Well, I'm glad that you went to a conference in which they're discussing that. We'll get to our third question in a moment, but first, EVs. I know you just mentioned like moving from ICE to EVs, EVs to ICE.
Yeah.
Where do we stand with the whole electric vehicle thing in your mind right now? I mean, it was meant to take off. Has it taken off? I mean, are they kind of stepping back? What are your thoughts?
Well, we're stepping back. There's no question. The entire auto industry is stepping back. It was a bridge too far. We thought we would jump right from where we are with ICE vehicles straight into EVs. And there was that stepping stone of the hybrid. Yeah. That, quite frankly, Toyota got that right. And as an industry, we scoffed at Toyota and we said, oh, no, we'll go, it's all about EVs, full speed ahead to EVs. And Toyota is known for its detailed planning, very conservative, very careful approach. And they got it right.
That's so smart. And it's funny because when you went to the auto shows, and I covered it in the last few years, you kind of saw that jump. It wasn't all about the hybrids. It was, hey, EVs, EVs, EVs. Here's an EV track. Here's the EV cars. And it kind of became a thing where everyone's like, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this. But that's a very interesting perspective. Tim has a question for you, Jan, here on The Pulse. Tim, thanks for asking the question to The Pulse tonight. How did GM, Ford, and the feds and the states screw up the rollout of EVs so badly, and now suppliers are dropping like flies? And the two automakers are losing billions. Answer, a lack of planning, he asserts, not understanding their customers' concerns, not reaching out to Musk, not looking at what Toyota was doing with hybrids, as you just said, and not looking at those recharge stations. So kind of what are the other issues that Tim is pointing out here that could have been considered and executed before this?
Well, it wasn't lack of planning. There's certainly a lot of planning that goes into determining what vehicles are going to come out and when. But certainly they got some things wrong. So the idea that consumers were going to take EVs and that EV adoption was going to climb fast didn't happen. So they underestimated how the consumer was going to behave. They underestimated the challenges with the infrastructure. We all know that there's the concern that we have, this range anxiety. Even if you do find a charger, is it working? So the challenges around the infrastructure to support the EV vehicle, that was also an issue.
But the Biden administration promised something like 500,000 charging stations within a certain number of years. We're not seeing that.
It didn't happen, no. So we underestimated those challenges. And then the reliance on government incentives, the $7,500 tax credit that we were able to get. Pulled back at the end of September. So that had a tremendous impact. And our ability in legacy automotive land, if you will, to make a vehicle, an EV, and make money. And this is where the Musk factor comes in. And don't assume that the legacy automakers are not talking to Musk. They have had, in many cases, conversations with Musk.
What do you think they're saying?
So I think they're talking about his approach. And again, we scoffed at Tesla in the beginning. We laughed. We said, oh, they're just a startup. They won't be able to make a vehicle. And they did. They figured it out and they made a vehicle. They're starting from a clean sheet of paper. They basically put a smartphone, they put a piece of technology on wheels. We are taking a complex system known as a vehicle that we've spent over 100 years developing, and we're trying to put tech into that. It's a different mindset.
Yeah,
it's a different way of thinking.
It really is. It's a computer on wheels, or wheels that now need to kind of retrofit a computer. So it's a very interesting way of looking at it. Jan, we always appreciate your perspective here on The Pulse. Come back again sometime and talk to us very soon. Thanks so much.
Thank
Jan
you.
Griffiths for us. Straight ahead on The Pulse, the latest jobs numbers, what they are and what the White House is saying. We'll take a look and see if they add up. And daylight saving time. Congress once again taking on the issue. Should we just turn our clocks ahead and leave them there? We'll have both sides of that timely debate. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. Welcome back to The Pulse. We're taking a closer look at some of the numbers for our economy. What would you say is your number one worry heading into 2026? Many Americans think it's health care. Well, it turns out 47% say affordable health care is what stresses them out the most. 1 in 5 say in the past 3 months they couldn't pay for a prescription. More than half of Americans have delayed medical treatment due to the costs. West Health Institute, a nonprofit, surveyed nearly 20,000 people across all 50 states to come up with these numbers. And we're finally getting a look at the September jobs numbers. Speaking of numbers, the report was originally due out more than 6 weeks ago, but as you know, was delayed because of the government shutdown. The U.S. ended up adding 119,000 jobs in September. That's actually better than expected. Hiring in healthcare and hospitality is up. Factories and warehouses cut jobs. The unemployment rate is up slightly to 4.4%. All of this is leading analysts to think that the Fed will hold interest rates right where they are. The White House press secretary had a lot to say about the state of the economy.
Inflation also remains under control, and wages are up by 3.8% over the year for American workers. The national average price of a gallon of gas on Thanksgiving Day is projected to be at the cheapest price since the COVID pandemic in 2021. Cooking Thanksgiving dinner will also cost less this year than it did last year and is down about 5% overall.
Now, there's a lot of numbers there, but do they add up? Let's do a pulse check right now. Inflation, she says, it's under control. It's still at about 3%, which is higher than what economists want it to be. How about the price of gas? Right now, AAA says the national average is $3.10 per gallon. That's slightly higher than last year's average for Thanksgiving, which was $3.06 per gallon. And what about that Thanksgiving dinner that you just heard her talk about? Will it gobble up less of your finances this year? The White House is quoting the American Farm Bureau Federation. It's showing the average cost for a family of 10 is down a little, under $3 from last year, which was down about the same time from the year before. Also tonight, a report detailing some big brother behavior from the feds. U.S. Border Patrol is monitoring how we travel. According to the Associated Press, this is part of a secretive program to identify and detain people whose travel patterns are deemed suspicious. As a result, some people are being stopped, searched, and in some cases arrested. There's a network of cameras that scan and record license plates. An algorithm then flags vehicles considered suspicious based on where they're coming from and where they appear to be heading. The feds contact local law enforcement who tracks down these drivers. The report shows this program isn't exactly new. It started about a decade ago to stop illegal border crossings and drug trafficking, but has expanded over the past 5 years. Well, this year we've seen a lot of controversy over something in our drinking water, fluoride. You know, in 1945, Grand Rapids, Michigan became the first city in America to add it to its water, and then others followed. Experts back then citing the benefits for stronger teeth, preventing decay. But it's come under fire recently, most notably from Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. He wants the CDC to stop recommending it, claiming it might harm cognitive ability. But a new study shows the reverse. The journal Science's Advances looked at test scores from nearly 27,000 Americans over the course of several decades. People who consumed the recommended fluoride levels scored higher on tests than those without it. So it actually might improve cognitive ability. This year, Utah and Florida became the first two states to ban fluoride in community drinking water. And finally, daylight saving. Should we just get rid of it? It's a tale as old as time, or so it seems. Lawmakers in Washington are revisiting this. Every March, we turn our clocks ahead an hour, and every November, we turn them back, like we did a few weeks ago. This was originally done to conserve energy, but is this archaic? Do we still need it? The time change ends up confusing a lot of people and leads to a surprising list of health issues. Many think let's turn the clocks ahead and leave them there.
Most people I talk to would like to have a set time that doesn't change. But unfortunately, we have not been able to come up with any consensus on the best solution of how to do that.
Kids who literally went to school with flashlights.
Permanent standard time is a better alignment with our brains and our function cognitively.
We're talking about standard versus daylight saving time, and daylight saving time is already 8 months of the year. In an ironic way, it is our standard time.
I do believe the evidence is clear. It's time for us to decide on one standard and to just stick with it. But what should that standard be?
So what should that standard be? Good question. That's what the lawmakers are asking. 19 states have passed laws calling for permanent daylight saving time, but that won't happen unless Washington approves it. Sticking with the topic, imagine if we did this. We made daylight saving permanent. This would be really tough for people who live up north, closer to the North Pole, where it's dark for 6 months. But even here in Metro Detroit, on December 21st, the winter solstice, the sun wouldn't rise until nearly 9 a.m. For much of the winter, kids would be heading to school in the dark. Something to think about. As always, only time will tell. Pun intended. That is the Pulse for tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rup Raj. As always, it was great to be with you.